I read this very sort of charming story about this gal who comes from a very devout family. Father was a minister, and she would be talking to God all day. This is something that she just grew up with. She says, but in her family, everybody talked all the time. You know, there's just chatter, 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 and the TV would be on all the time. There's never any silence in her family. And one day she was telling God about this and this and this and this, and she just stopped and said, God, are you ever listening? And she paused, which was very unusual for her, and heard very distinctly God say, if you would stop talking, you could hear my responses. And so she started on this process of listening to God. And actually, she'd written this article. That's why I'd read about it. And it was a very interesting article. And the article was, When God is Silent. You know, because she'd had this, once she started listening to God, really in all things, she'd talk and she'd listen, and talk and she'd listen. And her life would just sort of like move on and just be guided by this. And once it just stopped. It just completely stopped. And she couldn't figure it out. It was tied into her wanting to get married. She just had this very clear picture that she was going to marry a minister, and together they would, be a couple ministerial team. And she just said, I know it's going to happen, God. And she said, I don't, and she got to be 30, and she goes, well, Lord, where is he? What's the story here? Why hasn't he showed up? And there was just no answer. And so she actually went through a quite a long period of, not hearing an answer and not knowing what to do about it. And finally, it just sort of dawned on her that this wasn't a case where she was listening for the answer from God. Whatever God's will was for her in the situation. It was a case where she had defined what she wanted to happen in her life, and she was waiting to see how God was going to fulfill it. And there's a huge shift in there. And she suddenly realized that she was not open and receptive to God's will. She was only open and receptive to it if it came in the form of a husband. And once she got very clear on that, she said, okay, Lord. And, then, the conversation started coming back again. And he basically said, go and teach. And she's become a children's minister, ministering, teaching churches how to set up children's ministries around the country, really the world. And she says it's not impossible that she'll still get married someday, but it's just has not happened. And having this preconceived idea of what God should be doing for us stopped the flow of the communication because she wasn't willing to hear it.